Okay, good morning. We are here in Cartesian University and we are going to understand how important it is to create frozen cocktails. Okay, in that course, we are going to understand the importance of serving frozen cocktails in your local, in your restaurant, in your bar, understanding also the main advantages of using this kind of equipment for serving these kind of drinks. And also, and the most important is understand how to mix the ingredients to create fancy frozen cocktails. And also mocktails, that there is a trend right now, that it means basically cocktails without alcohol. Okay, so in that course, we're going to cover everything: how to operate with the equipment, how to mix different ingredients to create great recipes, and how is the market right now in terms of frozen cocktails, okay? But first of all, to understand right now or today how important these frozen cocktails and the trend that is right now in the market, we need to understand a little bit of history about frozen cocktails and frozen drinks. So how people in the past drank frozen drinks. It's very easy. In that period, the refrigerators, fridge, Carpillon ice cream machines, beer slime machines were not invented. So basically, the emperors, the kings, sent some slaves to the mountains to collect snow. And then in the palace, the king or the emperor mixed this snow with juices, honey, different ingredients. But, this is to understand that from the past, there is a lot of interest of drink this kind of frozen cocktails, frozen drinks. Even in Rome, the Emperor Nero mixed wine with snow. So we can say that is the first version of frozen cocktail that we know, okay? Then some inventions come to the people, and one of the most important inventions were the blender. The blender. In that period, slot machines were not invented, so bartenders, how they serve the frozen cocktails using the blender. Mix it every liquor, every tequila, for example, for a frozen margarita, inside of the blender with the ice, with different ingredients, to create the frozen cocktail. So basically, in the period of 1934 to 1960, bartenders implemented the blender inside of the bar in the countertop to create this kind of frozen cocktails. And in that period, we know the first tiki bar, that in this first tiki bar, the zombie frozen cocktail was invented. Also in Cuba, the fish daiquiri was invented with the blender, piña colada, in the Hilton Hotel, and also then in United States, this trend of frozen cocktails made with blender was dominant from the 40s and the 60s. But then the slot machines appeared, okay? In 1960, Omar invented the first slot machine that you can see at the left of the slide. So basically, the history is very funny because he was the owner of a C-store in the United States, and in that moment, he was serving soft drinks, okay? Coke, lemon soda drinks, with the fountain machine. But suddenly, that machine stopped to work, and he had a problem because it was summer, plenty of people that wanted to drink, and if you don't have this kind of equipment of the fountain machine, it's a problem. So what he did, he stored all of the bottles from the fountain to the fridge to store that bottles, to try to serve this kind of soft drinks in a different way. What happened? Then some customers entered to the C-store asking for a refreshing, for a cold drink. And the only thing that Umar was able to offer was this kind of soft drinks stored on the freezer. The result was that the texture of that drink was very frozen, like a slush, and people suddenly loved them. Okay, so Omar started to think, why not create an equipment to serve this kind of drinks? And this is the reason because Omar invented the first slot machine. Okay, then in Italy it was invented the first vertical slash machine, and then years after, the first frozen cocktail machine in Dallas. Okay? But what happened in this kind of drinks? Well, the slot machines, it's true that helped to serve faster frozen cocktails, but the quality of that frozen cocktails was not so very good, okay? That's the reason because we have a period from the 70s to the 90s where slash machines increased in the market for C-stores, sweetie drinks, like a Slash Puppy, for example, or in 7-Eleven. But in terms of frozen cocktail, because bartenders were using poor quality ingredients and the blender slash machines were not so innovative to work with alcohol, were not so popular. And suddenly, the frozen cocktail on that period was associated to poor quality frozen cocktail. So we can say that from 70 to 90, frozen cocktail were in a decline market, okay? But what happened? What happened in 2010? Slot machines started to be more innovative with more technology and allow to the bartenders to use more quality ingredients, recipes with more alcohol. It means a ready to serve frozen cocktail. And today, what we have? We have that bartenders and mixologists start to understand that a slot machine, that frozen cocktail, it's a good way, it's a good version to serve the cocktail and start to put all of the experience that they have into the frozen cocktail market. So nowadays we can say that frozen cocktail is not with poor ingredients, with poor syrups or concentrates like the past. Nowadays we can say that frozen cocktail is a trend because mixologists are using good quality ingredients. Also, because slot machines are able to produce faster, easier frozen cocktails, like beer machines that we are going to explain today. Okay? It means that combining all of the experience of the mixology and combining the innovative technology of the machines, today frozen cocktail is a big trend. It's a big trend that we need to study. We need to be aware and we need to understand the main advantages of start to serve frozen cocktail in our business, in our local, in our bar and restaurant. Okay? Because how is the market of frozen cocktails today? Okay? Well, this is a graph that we can say the difference between cocktails and frozen cocktails. Okay? So basically, in gray, we can say how the cocktail market is going to evolve in the next years, okay? Starting in 2023 until 2031, okay? So basically we can see that the cocktail market is going to increase. It means that people is going to drink more and the consumption of liquor, spirits, cocktails, frozen cocktails, canned cocktails, beer, all of the drinks that you can imagine with alcohol will be increased. Okay? But what does it mean, the bars in green? The bars in green is referring to the frozen cocktail market. It means you can see that cocktail market is growing, but also the frozen cocktail market is also growing. So the speed of growing to the frozen cocktail market, it's faster than the rest or standard cocktail. Basically, we are talking about numbers that in 2031, the market of frozen cocktails will be 9.2 billion. Okay, that this is a number that if we don't do a comparison, we cannot understand very well. But it means organizing 4 times the Olympic Games of Tokyo. Okay, or building 5 times the Burj Khalifa building, to understand that there is a trend that in the future will be increasing, and it's important to understand how we can money with this kind of drinks. Then, who is the group of people that drinks more frozen cocktails? Well, it's very clear that millennials and Z generation prefers frozen cocktails. Okay, you know, this kind of people prefers innovation, prefers new trends. They prefer to avoid the classic things that their dad used to drink. So they prefer to be on the wave, you know, to drink the things that they are trendy, not also in the bar, but also in Instagram, in the social network, because if you put in Instagram, for example, Facebook, TikTok, frozen cocktail, there is plenty of people doing things, not even in locals, also in their own home, you know. There is a trend that everybody right now is enjoying and making fun in social network. And just to give you a clue, which are the top 5 frozen cocktails that everybody is now drinking. So first one, obviously, is the classic one, frozen margarita. Frozen margarita is the first frozen cocktail that comes to mind when we talk about frozen cocktail. Is the example, the perfect example of a perfect, a very fancy frozen cocktail. Frozen margarita has the perfect combination of sweetness, of acidity, of flavor. So this is the reason because frozen margarita is the top one. Then, in the second place, we need to talk about frozen mojito. Okay, frozen mojito, we know that cocktail from 20 years ago, more or less, in liquid format, obviously, but also people start to understand that converting the liquid mojito into a frozen mojito, it's also an advantage because there is a massive trend with mojito. Then we have the daiquiri. Who doesn't like a strawberry daiquiri? In third place, we have this cocktail with rum, strawberry. This is a typical one that you can drink in every Greece, in every restaurant when you are in holiday. So it's so popular. There is many of places that they are serving this kind of drink. Then we have piña colada. Piña colada is another classic one. You know, the combination of pineapple with coconut is very fancy. You know, keep in mind that this kind of frozen cocktail, piña colada, for example, was invented 70 years ago. And right now, it's still being one of the top 5 frozen cocktails that people are consuming. So this is to understand that is easy, no? Because you have a blue ocean of opportunity to create, to innovate in this kind of sector, because people love to drink the classic ones, but because of that, there is not so much innovation in this kind of sector. So you can design, you can mix your own ingredients to create your own frozen cocktail better than these ones, okay? And obviously, beer machines can serve all of them, okay? So beer machines can help you to serve, to prepare this kind of drinks that there is the massive trend when we talk about frozen cocktail. So before starting to understand how to mix ingredients, maybe you don't know why you need to put an slush machine in your local to serve frozen cocktails. Maybe, first of all, we need to understand the main problems of today of serving frozen cocktails without any of the slush machines of VA. even using blender. There is so many problems, some operational problems when we serve frozen cocktails without any of this kind of equipment. So this is the first reason, the first advantage to serve frozen cocktail using a slush machine. This is the speed of service, okay? So basically the thing is how a bartender serves a frozen cocktail using the blender, or even a classic cocktail, a liquid cocktail. So basically the bartender needs to mix every time all of the ingredients of the cocktail, the liquor, the spirit, the syrup, the juice, the ice, every time. So depending on the skills of the bartender, depending on how difficult is the cocktail, normally a bartender stays around 2 and 8 minutes to prepare every cocktail. So let's suppose this in a Saturday night, right now in summer, in a beach bar, for example, this is a huge quantity of time, and suddenly you can have a huge queue of people waiting for the cocktail. So the experience for the customer is not so good, and the bartender obviously will be a little bit overwhelmed about this preparation time. Okay? But what do you think if you have the frozen cocktail already ready to serve in the glass? So this is the solution that we propose with the machine. So basically, in the VR machine, you have the cocktail, the frozen cocktail, ready to serve inside of the machine. So basically, the main advantage is when a customer asks you for a frozen cocktail, you only have to pull from the lever, and suddenly the machine gives the frozen cocktail directly to the glass, just in 10 seconds. So basically, for cutting serving times is very perfect, is very good, because we are going to pass from serving the cocktail taking around 5 minutes to just 10 seconds. So for places with high demand, this is very useful because we can cut serving times. What more? Less operations, okay? What does it mean? What does it mean? So basically, when a bartender prepares a cocktail or a frozen cocktail or even a drink without alcohol, if the bartender doesn't have the slush machine, he has to do this kind of 5 operations every time for each customer. So this one is fill the shaker with ice, then put the juices inside of the shaker, then the operator, the bartender, has to add the syrup, the spirits, shake well. This is the 4th step. And 5th step is strain from the shaker to the glass. Every time the bartender, the operator has to do this kind of cycle of operations for serving the cocktail. Every time. So we can see that there is a lot of steps for every cocktail during all of the night that maybe the operator can fail in one of them, serving a not good frozen cocktail. But what do you think if you have a solution that you only have to mix the ingredients just one time? Just one time. So before serving, let's suppose that you are working with this kind of equipment. Before opening your local, your beach bar, you mix all of the ingredients of the cocktail in a big bucket. The next slide, we will see how to do it, and we will do a cocktail here to understand how easy it is to do that. But let's suppose that you only have to mix all of the ingredients of the cocktail just one time before opening in a bucket, fill the machine with the cocktail, with the recipe, and then that's all. The machine will mix all of the ingredients inside of the tank, and that's all. You don't have to mix anymore. So this is the reason, because we can save a lot of operations with the slush machine. The third reason about the main advantage of using the cocktail machine, the slide machine, is the quality, to be consistent on the flavor. So for explaining that, I like to use the history of Mariano Martinez, that he was the inventor of the first frozen margarita machine. So what happened to Mariano Martinez? So Mariano Martinez was a Mexican guy. So he wanted to open his own Mexican restaurant, okay? He wanted to serve tacos, burritos, Mexican stuff. Everybody loves. But for doing that, he saved a lot of money and he opened this restaurant at the left of the slide, Mariano's Hacienda Ranch. And the first time, he was very happy and he joined to the first party, to the inauguration party, a lot of friends, a lot of family, colleagues, okay, to enjoy the first day of the restaurant. So people started to order a lot frozen margaritas. But in that moment, frozen margarita was not invented. The frozen margarita machine was not invented. So the bartender in the Hacienda Ranch, in the Mariano Martinez restaurant, were preparing the frozen margarita with the blender. Okay? So the next day, a lot of complaints arrived to Mariano Martinez. So basically, their friends, family were complaining to Mariano Martinez. Hey, Mariano, I ordered 3 frozen margarita, but the flavor of each one was not so good. Everyone had different flavor. So Mariano Martinez started to worry about that because a lot of people complaining about the different flavor of each frozen cocktail. Theoretically, the frozen margarita was always the same recipe, but what happened? Because the huge demand of the restaurant, the bartender doesn't have so much time to mix well each ingredient of the recipe in the blender. Okay? Maybe sometimes the bartender were adding more liquor, in the next time less lemon juice, in the next time more tequila, for example. So basically, the frozen margarita was different because this kind of operational processes. But let's suppose that you have a machine that always gives you the same consistency in flavor, okay? Because you don't have to mix all of the ingredients every time. You don't have this kind of files of errors inside of the machine. The cocktail, the frozen cocktail, is ready to serve, and basically the only you have to do is put from the lever to the glass. That's all. You don't have to mix any ingredient when you serve the frozen cocktail to the glass. So basically, this is important to give the same consistency, the same flavor to your customer in your restaurant. The fourth reason about using the machine for frozen cocktail is the ice. Okay, because in liquid cocktails, how do you think that bartenders chills the liquid inside of the shaker? They need ice, or even for preparing frozen cocktail with the blender, they need ice. It's the component that is going to freeze all of the ingredients. But ice is a problem also. Why? Because ice is an ingredient that keeps a lot of space in the local. Right now, the bartender can follow 2 ways. One of these is storing huge quantity of ice bags. So they need a lot of space in the fridge for this kind of ice bags. Or the other way is installing in the restaurant, a machine for producing ice. So it's also expensive, okay? Maybe you can think, well, I don't like the slush machine because it's an inversion, it's a cost. Well, but keep in mind that if you are not going to install a slush machine for a frozen cocktail, you are going to install a ice production machine that is going to cost more or less the same. Okay. In the beer machines, obviously you put all of the ingredients and you don't need to add the ice because the machine is going to freeze all of the ingredients inside. You don't need this kind of machine extra for producing ice. You don't need a space for storing all of the ice bags inside of the local. It's in just 40 centimeters in that case, you are going to save a lot of money and the space for the ice. Then is the flexibility another advantage of using VR equipment for creating frozen cocktail is the flexibility in terms of ingredients, okay? Because a lot of people think, well, you have to respect the bricks. It's important to follow the bricks in each recipe. You cannot use standard ingredients from the supermarket. You need to use specific ingredients for preparing the slush. That's not true. There is a lie. That is not true. Why? Because when we design this kind of equipment, we design the equipment not to work just with syrups. It's okay to work with syrups and concentrate, but it's just a part of a group of all of the ingredients that you can use with the machine. Okay, so in the VR equipment, we can use from ready-to-use drinks, even not specific ingredients for a slush. It means, for example, a ready-to-use cocktail, like as we can find in every supermarket in canned version, for example. We also can work with concentrates. This is the standard procedure that the 90% of operators are doing right now, but we want to go into this using ingredients that you can find in every supermarket. Okay? Don't be afraid to work with natural fruit, to work with juices that you can find in any supermarket. It's easy to work with this kind of ingredients with our machines. It's just to be how to combine all of the ingredients to get the best result, and that's all. That's all. But again, you can select from the most easy procedures, just open the bottle and add the content inside of the machine, to the most fancy one, combining all of the ingredients to create your own recipe. That's what we are going to see in the next slides. The sixth advantage of using the same machine is the presentation of the glass. Okay? Because when a bartender designs a cocktail, a normal cocktail is in liquid form. Liquid format, it means that if you add toppings, normally the toppings cannot stay on the surface of the glass. This is obvious because the density of the liquid cocktail. But in a frozen cocktail format, the density of the slush allows you to add toppings at the top of the glass, you know? It's important to understand that more decoration you add to the glass, more fancy it will be and more sales you are going to do. Because toppings, decoration, and garnish is also a communication that the quality of the product inside of the glass is good. Okay? Also gives the perspective that the product inside of the glass is a frozen cocktail. Okay? Because normally a standard recipe, a lemon slush, for example, doesn't have this kind of decoration normally. But with this, you're going to communicate that the ingredients inside of the glass has good quality, and you know, that is important to take care about this, because right now in the social network, a lot of people is doing pictures, it's a way to give you more publicity in your restaurant if you do this kind of decorations also. And also in terms of technical things about creating a cocktail, is that when bartenders are using the shaker for preparing the cocktail, I repeat, they use the ice for chilling the drinks. But ice, there is also a problem. A part of the ice that bartenders is going to use for chilling the drinks is going to be diluted and mixed with the rest of the ingredients. Okay? And this is a problem because how to control this quantity of water that comes from the ice? Maybe if the bartender is shaking the cocktail too much, a huge quantity of water is going to mix with the rest of the ingredients and the result will be a little bit soft. In the opposite, if the bartender is not shaking well or few time, the mix will not be chilled enough. Okay, so there is a dilution control that the bartender needs to do, but it's not easy because it depends about the skills of the bartender, the time that he is doing the shaking of the ingredients. It's difficult to control. But what do you think if I can say you that with beer equipment you don't have to take care about this kind of dilution? The recipe inside of the machine is diluted enough because you are going to control the quantity of ingredients. You don't have to put more ice or more water when the recipe comes to the glass, okay? So if you are going to calculate the parameters of the recipe, then in the glass will be the same. In a cocktail, no, because you are going to calculate the quantity of alcohol, but depending on the skills of the bartender is going to add more or less water coming from the ice. So then the parameter of the end cocktail that the end customer is going to drink may be different one of others, being the same recipe. Okay, so we are going to understand the two kinds of machines that BA is offering, because it's important to understand, first of all, depending on the business that you have or you plan to put the machine for frozen cocktail, it's important to understand that we serve two kinds of technology for doing frozen cocktails, okay? Depending on the demand, depending on the rush time, depending on how the people is consuming the frozen cocktail in your local, it's going to be important understand how to choose if smart, that is a batch production, or dream is the good equipment for you. So basically, we have here two machines, and the main difference, as you can see, is that this one, Smart, the name of this machine is Smart, is more visual. Transparent bowls. This one has the cylinder inside of the machine, it's not so visual, but we can understand that this machine is, more visual, smaller than this one, so maybe it can give you a clue that this one is more powerful than this one. But the most important thing is the operation with the two machines. This one, we are going to say that is for working in a batch mode, okay? But this one is for working in a continuous mode. What does it mean? Let's explain this. So basically, let's go to the smart machine. Why we say that the smart is for working in a batch mode production? Because the cycle that the operator is going to do is like a circle, okay? In a 5 steps. So the first one, let's suppose that you have the machine is mixing all of the ingredients in a big bucket, okay? And after mixing all of the ingredients, we need to fill the machine like this. We open the lid, fill the machine, okay? And then Once the machine is filled with the recipe, we press the production mode here in the display, the green one, as you see in the slide. And after this, we put the ingredients in a liquid format at room temperature, for example, and the machine needs a time to convert this liquid recipe to a frozen cocktail recipe. You know, the machine takes time to do that. It's not in terms of seconds, next time. It depends on the level of the recipe, the quantity, the room temperature, the temperature of the ingredients that we use. So more or less, we can say that filling the machine at 15 liters, that is the maximum capacity, takes around 90 minutes, 2 hours, depending on the quantity of alcohol, okay? Well, after 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, we will have the product ready to serve, and the only thing we have to do is pull it from the level, and in terms of seconds, you will have the frozen cocktail ready to serve in the glass. And if we continue serving portions and serving portions, there is a moment where the bowl will be empty. This is obvious. What is happening after that? We need to repeat the cycle. Okay, mix the ingredients, fill the machine again, wait to freeze, serve, empty, and fill again. We have to follow this kind of cycle. This is why we say that the machine is designed to work in a batch mode. But what does happen with the dream? The dream is a little bit different. You know, you can avoid this kind of preparation time in that machine. This is why we say that the dream machine is for a continuous model. So, in the dream machine, we start the same. Filling the machine, at the top of the machine, we have the hopper. This is the part of the machine that we are going to fill with product, as you see in the slide. Then press the green icon to start freezing the mix. And the important thing about the machine is that in that machine we have two spaces. The cylinder here, where the frozen cocktail will be ready, and the hopper. It is like a tank bowl at the top of the machine that keeps the mix in liquid format but chilled at 4 degrees. So at the moment that the machine is going to freeze the recipe, we have to understand that the machine has two spaces. The cylinder for freezing, the hopper for chilling, okay? So when the machine has the product ready to serve, this machine takes less time than the Smart. In around 20 minutes, the machine has the product ready to serve. You can serve from the cylinder, pulling the handle to the glass. But what is happening in that machine when the operator is taking portion? So remember, the machine has two spaces, cylinder and hopper. When the operator is taking portions, the level of product that is decreasing is in the hopper. Is in the hopper, not in the cylinder. Well, when a bartender takes the portion from the machine, the portion comes from the cylinder. But this empty space that is created into the cylinder is automatically filled with chilled product from the hopper. It falls from the hopper to cover this empty space that we have created after the dispensing the portion. So basically, the level that we are going to decrease is in the hopper, is in the tank. But there is a point in the tank, in the hopper, that there is a level sensor. And when the level on the tank reaches that minimum level, So it means that the level sensor, it's uncovered from the liquid, sends an alarm to the operator to fill again the machine. So in that case, the operator fill the machine until the max level, but at the moment that the operator is doing this, the machine has already to serve 7 liters in the cylinder. So the operator doesn't have to wait for the new batch to be frozen. Because, repeat, when the bartender is doing this, the machine has already to serve 7 liters. That's why we say that this machine is to work in a continuous mode, because doesn't allow you to stop. We don't need to stop for the new batch to freezing. The machine has already to serve 7 liters into the cylinder. And as you can see, this is the main difference between the two machines. Smart for batch, this kind of cycle that every time we have to wait, every time that we fill the machine with new product. In the dream model, we fill and wait the first time, but after serving portions, as you can see, we don't have to restart at the same point. We can fill the machine and at the moment continuing serving portions from the machine without stopping, without leaving from serving portions, because the machine needs to freeze the product again. Okay? So, with this in mind, which are the best places for each machine? So, the smart machine, because of this kind of batch production, the mainly locals, the mainly restaurants that it's important to create this kind, to install this kind of machine, it's bars and pubs with a low moderate demand, in places where frozen cocktails are not so popular, but they wanted to start frozen cocktail, but not so much. So in that case, this one is perfect, okay? Because we don't need this kind of high capacity demand machine. Also, a restaurant or a bar or a coffee shop that frozen cocktail it's on the menu, but it's not the main item. Okay, in a restaurant, the main item would be food, would be dessert, but not frozen cocktail, but appears on the menu. So in these kind of places, a smart machine, it's a good option because it allows you to serve this moderate demand with this machine. Because maybe you can prepare the correct quantity, you can calculate more or less the demand of frozen cocktail that you are going to have in a weekend, and you can prepare the correct quantity of product for serving to this group of people. So maybe if the demand is moderate to low, the smart machine is a good option for you. Keep in mind that we have the version with 1 bowl, 2 bowls, and 3 bowls. Well, in the opposite, the dream model is for a high demand places. The dream machine is for a high demand places where frozen cocktail is basically the most important drink into the menu. Which ones, for example? Discotheques, nightclubs, cruises. There are plenty of places. That frozen cocktail is on a high demand, and this kind of equipment is going to suit you very well. Okay. For example, in stadiums and festivals, we have customers that use the dream model for serving frozen cocktails on that places. And at the moment that the machine is empty, they fill again with the batch. They store all the batch in a huge carafe, store it in the fridge, and they can serve frozen cocktail without any stop. If in these kind of places we put a smart machine, what would happen? That maybe in 2 hours the bowl will be empty, but the customers will continue asking for more frozen cocktails, and you will not serve any cocktail because the machine will not have the product ready to serve. But with Dream equipment, you can do this. You can do it. Also, it's important to understand the rush hours. If your local serve frozen cocktail, but is not so frequent, it means, for example, during the day, if your local serve frozen cocktail just 3 hours in the afternoon, and the group of people that consume this kind of drinks are normally groups of 3 or 4 people that each one asks for a frozen cocktail, it means that every time that this kind of 3 or 4 people is coming to your local, 3 or 4 frozen cocktails are going to be dispensed very fast in a rush. Okay. In that case, it's important to understand in this kind of businesses, smart can also help you, because in the moment that the product is ready to serve from the machine, it doesn't matter if there is a group of 5 people, 6, 7, 8, you can serve in a rush mode without any problem. With the Dream, we have to be careful. If the rush hour is so plenty of people and the frequency of dispensing is so fast, it means if we serve 5 frozen cocktails of half liters each one for a group of 5 people, maybe the next time we will have to wait a little bit to refreeze again, to give the machine a little bit of time to freeze the new batch, the new liquid that is coming from the hopper. Well, using the control panel. Okay, so how the operator is going to work with the equipment, how you are going to work with the equipment is very easy. The first of all you have to do is the main switch. Main switch is always in our equipment. The right part at the bottom, we have into the Dream machine, we have the general switch here, right at the bottom, and in the smart machine, we have here the general switch. And after this, we have to control the machine through the display. Both machines has the same icons, and into the Dream machine, we have to display right here on the top, very easy, and in the smart here in the frontal panel. And basically, we have to understand the 4 modes that the machine is going to allow you to work. So, the first one is the production mode. It means that the machine is going to freeze the recipe inside, is going to prepare the frozen cocktail. It means that the machine is going to convert the liquid recipe to a slash recipe, and that's all. It's the mode that we are going to press when we want to prepare the frozen cocktail. But what is happening at night? A lot of customers ask us, well, I need to leave the machine in production mode during night. Well, to be honest, the standby mode is to allow you to store the mix at night inside of the machine at correct temperature. So there are some machines that doesn't have this standby mode, and basically there is a problem for the operator, for the bartender, because every night, the bartender needs to empty the machine, store all the recipe into external fridge, and the next day fill again the machine every morning. So there is a little bit disgusting. But with the beer equipment, we have the standby mode that allows you to store the product inside the machine at night at 4 degrees. Okay? So it means that you will save electricity, you will save money on that, and the recipe will be in a good temperature for preservation at night. Well, then we have the defrost mode. Defrost mode means, in some machines, means that, well, defrost mode means obviously that you are going to melt the product inside of the machine. But we have two technologies for doing this. In the smart machine, for example, we have the hot gas technology. What does it mean? That the machine is going to heat the cylinder, is going to heat the evaporator to melt faster the slash inside of the machine. And you can think, well, and why I need this kind of technology, this kind of hot gas for my machine? Well, to be honest, we have designed this kind of system for 24 hours businesses that keeps the machine in production mode during a lot of time, a lot of hours. And what happens if you leave a recipe inside of the machine during a lot of hours? Okay, so at the beginning of creating as the slash texture, the crystals of ice of the recipe are very small, are very tiny, are very small. But after the hours, if you are not going to renovate the slash from the machine, this kind of small crystals of ice are going to make groups between them, creating bigger and bigger crystals of ice. So it means that if you put a recipe today inside of the machine and you keep the machine in production mode during 4 or 5 days, then after 5 days, it means Sunday, for example, of this week, the crystals of ice will be super huge that you can even bite them. And this is very disgusting as talking in terms of texture, because this kind of aggregation of the crystals of ice makes that you are not going to have a homogeneous texture inside the machine. Okay? How hot gas is going to solve this? In other machines that doesn't have hot gas, the only thing you have to do is melt the product at room temperature. But it takes a lot of time, you can think, right? But with hot gas, you can melt the product faster inside of the machine, convert from bad texture slash to liquid again, and the same recipe, the same liquid texture, the same liquid recipe, sorry, can be freezed again, can be converted to a slash, but in this second refreezing, you are going to have a small crystals of ice. That is the perfection when we talk about frozen cocktails. So hot gas helps you to control the texture of the recipe, okay? To not going to have so much big crystals of ice. There are some machines, as Dream, that doesn't have the hot gas system, but this is obvious because we are renovating the product inside of the cylinder every time that we dispense a portion. So at the time that we serve a portion, the liquid comes to the cylinder, and this liquid is virgin. Okay? When this new liquid is converted to a slash, obviously we'll have tiny crystals of ice. Okay? So this is the reason, because we have in Smart hot gas, in the Dream we don't have hot gas. The own logic of the machine allows you to control the crystallization of the recipe. And then obviously we have the stop mode, that it means stopping polling circuit, mixer, everything. Then we need to understand how the machine is going to control the texture of the frozen cocktail. Because there are a lot of customers that ask us, it is possible to control the temperature, right? Well, we prefer to talk about controlling the consistency. How you're going to have the thickness or of your frozen cocktail. Thickness, it means the density, the texture. More liquid, more thick. Okay, you're going to control this, not temperature. Basically, for doing this, it's very easy. You have to go to the user menu on the machine and select density in the smart. We can select from 1 to 10. 1 means more liquid product, 10 thicker product. In Dream, we will control more accuracy this texture from 1 to 100. Why we need to control the texture in this machine and not control the temperature? Well, the reason is because each recipe, depending on the alcohol quantity, depending on the sugar quantity, will have different freezing temperature. Okay, this is a little bit of science. Freezing temperature is given by the quantity of sugar and alcohol. That there are the most common anti-freezing ingredients that we have when we create a frozen cocktail. So, let's suppose that you have 2 recipes and we have a machine that controls temperature, okay? In one recipe, let's suppose that the freezing point is -12, and in the other one is -4, okay? So if you don't know the freezing temperature of each recipe, this is very difficult, and it's difficult to understand this if you don't have any knowledge about that. Maybe you are not setting the machine correctly to freeze the recipe because you don't know the freezing point of that. But with VR equipment, we are going to control the consistency of the recipe, and basically, depending on the recipe, all of the recipes for getting the slush texture, independent from the temperature, will have the same texture for getting the frozen texture. So it means that with VR equipment will be easier to control the quality of the drink. Okay? Basically, our target will be serving like this. As you can see, this is the perfect texture that we suggest to serve you. Okay? How you are going to know if my recipe has good texture? Well, basically because when you dispense the portion from the machine to the glass will be all filled with the texture, and at the top will be a little bit of mountain shape, okay, like this. This is the perfect texture for a frozen cocktail, for a frozen drink, for a frozen black coffee, okay? How we are going to identify if my texture doesn't have good texture? Well, we have two options, too liquid or too thick. If we are not setting the machine correctly with the consistency, maybe we can serve portions too liquid, okay? How we are going to notify this? Because we don't have at the top this little mountain of ice, and you know, the texture of the recipe will look watery. You can even, if you look at the glass, you will see a little crystals of ice mixed with liquid, with water. It doesn't, well, maybe your customers like this way, but we don't suggest to serve frozen drinks like this, because in a summer, for example, these small crystals of ice will be melted super fast with this warm water. In the opposite, if we set the machine in a too thick consistency, we will have this kind of texture right in the slide. The there will be a lot of aggregation of files. We are not going to fill all of the class with the recipe, and basically for the customer will think that he's going to consume the frozen cocktail with a spoon because it's too hard, even difficult to drink with a straw. So it's important to identify which is the perfect consistency, because there are some customers that doesn't know how to serve quality in the frozen drinks. They think that too liquid it's okay, or they think that too thick it's okay. But you know, for our experience that we have asking with end customer, making survey, we understand that the best perfect texture that we can serve with frozen cocktail is like this. And this is very easy to set with the machine. The only thing you have to do is to go to the user menu, here into the display. Smart, we have the display in the frontal panel. Green, we have the display here. And just select the consistency, the density value that you want, okay? If we see that we are serving this kind of texture, we will increase the texture to achieve this kind of texture. In the opposite, if we are serving glasses like this, we have to decrease the value of the consistency to get until we get this kind of texture. Because how the machine is going to control the density? Well, this is just to understand the technology that the machines has, because there is the only one slash machines that have this kind of consistency control. It's very accurate for controlling the density that every time is okay. So basically, how the machine is understanding that the consistency of the glass is okay, the recipe is okay, because the motor. So the machine basically is mixing the ingredients inside of the tank with a motor, and the motor that the machine has is an electrical motor. Electrical motor, it means that we can control the consumption, electrical consumption of that motor. So it means that the machines knows in real time the consumption of the motor. So basically, if we put a liquid here at the beginning, this electrical consumption will not be so high, because the motor doesn't need a lot of effort to mix this liquid texture. But what is happening at the moment that we put production mode? The recipe will start to freeze and freeze and freeze, and converting in a more viscous recipe. Okay, so it means that we are going to increase the electrical consumption of the motor. So that is how the machine controls the consistency of the mix. So with VR, you will have equipment that will give you information real time about the consumption of the motor. That it means how thick is my mix inside of the machine. More thickness, it means more electrical consumption. And that's we say that the machine is going to control the consistency, because it's easier, it's more accuracy to know, to control the texture for the frozen cocktail. Then working with consistency gives you this main advantage. We have here for recipes, frozen juices, frozen coffee, regular slush, and frozen cocktail. Each one has different quantity of sugars, even different quantity of alcohol. Frozen cocktail has alcohol, the three others don't have alcohol, but the three others have different quantity of sugar. Okay? So, different quantity of sugar means different freezing point. And this is the recommendation that we are going to give you when we work with different recipes with the Smart for Drink. For example, with frozen juices or frozen coffee normally doesn't have so much sugar as a regular slush because we want to feel the bitter flavor of the coffee. Even with the frozen juices, we don't want to cover with a high profile of sweetness the flavor of the fruit. In that case, because the sugar it's around 8%, 30%, we can set the machine to in a value of 2 of 10 for the consistency. In a regular slush that we have a little bit more sugar, means around 30-80%, we can set the consistency a little bit higher. For example, 5 into the smart machine, it's okay, it's a good value for regular slush. But for frozen cocktail that we have 2 anti-freezing ingredients, alcohol, liquor, and sugar, we need to increase more this consistency value. 7, for example, in a frozen margarita is a good value. So depending on the recipe that you are going to work, we need to understand that less sugar or less alcohol, we will have a less anti-freezing power. It means less consistency value. At the moment that we are going to add more liquor, more spirit, more alcohol, more sugar into the recipe, we will be increasing this anti-freezing quantity of ingredients. We'll be increasing the anti-freezing power. The machine will need a lower temperature for get ready. In that case, we are going to increase the value of the density through the menu. It's very easy. Then key values about the machine, because maybe you are right now working with slime machines and you want to understand how to create frozen cocktails, but maybe you can ask yourself why I need a beer equipment to prepare frozen cocktails if in the market there is different brand of machines. It's impossible to prepare frozen cocktails with the other different brands. Which is the advantages of using beer for preparing frozen cocktails, comparing to other machines? Why it's important to use beer machines to create frozen cocktails? So, I think that space is important in your locals, because right now in bars and restaurants, countertop is not so high, and saving space is crucial for installing this kind of equipment. Okay? So, the main advantages of beer equipment is the vertical ventilation system. What does it mean? So, the thing is, if today you are going to use another brand slush machine for preparing a slush or frozen cocktail, you need to leave some clearance space between the machines, okay? Because the other technology that other brands are using nowadays is lateral ventilation. It means that inside of the machine, there is plenty of electrical components, the cooling circuit that needs to be refrigerated. Refrigerated it means like a computer with a fan. It needs ventilation for taking out all of the heat that is the machine producing inside of the machine. So, how other brands are doing this? They put a fan at the lateral part of the machine. So basically, they take cold air from one side and expels it to the other side. It's good, but there is a problem with that, because when you are going to install a slime machine, let's suppose that you read the user instructions and says that the dimensions of the machines are around 40 centimeters width, okay? So you go to your countertop, you leave these 40 centimeters, but suddenly in the user manual advises you to not only take these 40 centimeters of space, but also leave more space for clearance ventilation. So you don't need just 40 centimeters width for installation. You need more centimeters of dead space, because it's just the space that the machine takes for ventilation. Normally, the other brands needs around 25 centimeters each side. So if you put more than 2 or 3 machines, it means that between machines, you will leave 50 centimeters. This is a huge space in the countertop nowadays. We need solutions for putting the space on the countertop. And VA is doing like this. Thanks to vertical ventilation, you can install the machine like this without any clearance space. The machine takes the cold air in the front and expels it to the rear. So let's suppose that in your countertop, you can install the machine close to the equipment that you already have. Then are the automatic modes. A lot of people can think, well, how much time takes the machine to convert from liquid to frozen? And I always say the same. It depends about the room temperature, about the quantity of alcohol, about the ingredients temperature, but you can control this. You don't need to be worried about this. Why? Because the machine has automatic modes. Automatic modes, it means that you can allow the machine to work in automatic modes without pressing any icon or something like that. So, for example, if you have a nightclub that opens Friday at 9 o'clock at night, using other brand's machine, this is the procedure. You open the nightclub, you fill the machine, and you press manually the production mode. And you will have a time where the machine is converting from liquid to frozen that the operator is not going to serve because the product obviously is still liquid, is not ready. But what do you think if you can set the machine so at 7 o'clock, 2 hours before opening, the machine starts automatically to start freezing the mix. So at night, when you open the beach club is local, the machine will have the product ready to serve inside. Okay? So basically, the waiting freezing time doesn't mind because at the moment that you can set when the machine starts to freeze, you not be to be worried about this. Okay? Then the other thing you can think is, well, but for sure the machine is going to consume a lot of electricity. Electricity bill will be so high at the end of the month. Well, let me say that the machines use a more efficient refrigerant gas, propane, okay? Propane gas is a more efficient gas. It means that for getting a good performance, we need less quantity of that gas, of that refrigerant gas. At the moment that the machine is using less quantity of gas, the compressor is like the heart of the machine, is like the heart of the machine. So at the moment that we use less quantity, we don't need a super huge compressor, a high consuming compressor, because we don't need a lot of gas for getting a good performance with the machine. So we install the machine for working with propane with a low consumption compressor because the quantity of gas is very few, but still the machine performing very well. So, for example, if you use the dream machine, that is the most consumption machine that we have right now, working 12 hours in production mode, 12 hours at night in standby mode, you only have to pay less than one euro per day, okay, working with the dream. Even less working with the smart because the consumption is even less. But just to give you a clue, more or less, which is the electrical consumption of this kind of equipment working with frozen cocktail. There is no so high, less than €1. At the moment that you are serving 1 cup, you are covering the cost of that electrical consumption in just 1 cup, basically. Then is that we design the machines specifically for work with alcohol. For work with alcohol. So, what is the point to work with alcohol? Alcohol, remember, is a superactive freezing ingredient. So even if you put a bottle of liquor, a vodka, for example, directly inside of the fridge, of the freezer, this bottle, this liquor will not be not frozen because this anti-freezing power, the temperature for freezing the alcohol is very low, So that's the point, because we design the machines with a specific cooling circuit for cooling the frozen cocktail. For example, everybody knows a regular lemon slush without alcohol. Just to give you an idea, regular lemon slush is ready at -3, -4 Celsius degrees, but in a frozen margarita, the standard one, the ready to serve temperature is -15. Okay, it's around -10 degrees more. So it means that we need a specific cooling circuit for doing this. Is it possible to prepare frozen cocktail with other brand machines? Yes, but it's like buying a Dacia car for driving 200 kilometers per hour into the motorway. Okay? It's not the best option because we will be stressing the internal components so much in this kind of equipment. But with smart machines are designed directly to work with alcohol. Even I remember when we developed the project, I was testing the machine in our laboratories 4 years ago, I remember, just to understand the power of the cooling circuit. I bought 10 liters of vodka in a huge carafe, and I filled the machine, the smart machine, just with vodka, 40% of alcohol. And after 3 hours, the machine will have the vodka slusher in slush format, just vodka, 40% of alcohol. This is just to understand that the machine has this kind of powerful to these recipes with more than 20% of cocktail. Well, spoiler, that recipe with just vodka was very disgusting because, as we will see in the next slide, when we drink a frozen cocktail, the perception of the alcohol is higher than a liquid cocktail. So it's important to control the quantity of alcohol to not be so strong in a profile flavor, okay? Then the other option that you can think is, well, yeah, the machine is good, but we need to clean the machine, okay? But let me say that when we design this kind of equipment, we designed the machine to clean in a few parts. For example, the tap. When we design this kind of equipment, we design the machines with the fewest possible parts to clean, like this tap. In other kind of machines, we need to disassemble this seal, the spring, this level. In VR equipment, we can clean the tap like this in just one group. Okay? So basically, the cleaning time of the machine is very fast comparing to other equipment. Then we have the customization of the lights. It's important right now to be customized in terms of lights, because in a pub, in a discotheque, where the illumination is so dark, it's important to captivate the attention of the customer. The illumination of the machine gives you, let me say, helps to support the recipe that is inside the machine. Okay, and it's just going to the menu. And as you can see, very easy, you can select the color that you want. Maybe, for example, for a strawberry daiquiri, why not put here red color? So just keep an eye. The customer understands that the recipe that is inside of the machine is with a strawberry. Okay. Also, with Dream, you can set that the let's give you some information about that, about the state of the recipe. It means that when the product is getting frozen, the machine, the light flashes, indicating that the machine is going to freeze the product. When the light is fixed, it means that the product is ready to serve. How much is the cost of V8? Okay, Simon, if you want, you can send us your email and we can send you all of the list price of the equipment, the Smart, the Dream, and you can also see the different options that we can offer. Because the Smart Machine, for example, we are seeing the top one version, with lights, with flavor ducts, with hot gas, but it's true that inside of the catalog of Smart, we can also offer a basic version. It's like a car. When you are trying to buy a car, you have the basic version, that the basic version maybe doesn't have this huge screen, doesn't have the perfect music sound, but maybe it's a good option for you. In the other side, you have the top premium version with best perfect sound, lights, all of this kind of stuff. This is the same. We have the basic version without lights, different kind of bulbs, without these flavor tags, without hot gas, and also the top version of this machine, like this one. And also you can create your own version of machine through our catalog, okay, with the optionals. Then if you send us your mail, we can send you all of the information. Okay, then also important, working with VA, we can also support you with recipes development. It's true that today we are going to explain how to develop recipes from yourself, but in case that you want to do a very fancy recipe, you can also use the VA consulting support. Okay, so V8 is not only offering machines, it's only offering support for developing, for recipe developing, for controlling the food cost of the cup, for developing, for example, a recipe for getting the ROI, the recovery of the investment in 2, 3, 4 months, depending on the demand that you want. We can control this kind of stuff. So again, if you are going to work with VR and VR Consulting, just write an email to the chat and we can contact you after the demo for this kind of stuff, okay? So basically, this is basically the document that we do in VR Consulting. When a customer asks for a recipe, normally a customer that is working with VR is normally an end user that, for example, has a Mexican party, let me say. They want to offer with the V8 a super fancy recipe of a, not frozen margarita because it's too obvious, but let's suppose a frozen paloma, that there is a trend right now. So then customer can contact with the distributor and then the distributor contact with us or directly through VR Consulting to create a frozen concept with alcohol, without alcohol, using the ingredients that you are already using. For example, if you are working, I don't know, with morning syrups, with fabric syrups, with this kind of brand juice, for example, the only thing you have to do is give us all of the information of that ingredients, and through that ingredients, we are going to calculate to create a frozen cup with those ingredients. Not only the cup, we are going to provide you with the quantity of each ingredient for doing a 10 liter batch, how you are going to set the machine, how you are going to decorate the machine. Okay. Then we will see some examples that we do calculating the cost, how through this concept the customer is going to recover the investment, some case stories that explain this better than just a slide. Then we have the control through the smartphone in the smart. Okay, basically you using your smartphone you can control the machine, and it means that, for example, in a busy hours, that there is a bartender very busy serving cocktails from the machine, but the bar manager is outside of the bar. At the moment that the bar manager is watching that maybe he needs to increase the consistency, they doesn't have to bother the bartender going to the display. This is the procedure that you have to do with other equipment, but with a smart, maybe the bartender is very busy in the bar like me serving cocktails, and the bar manager can stay in the very far from the bar and changing this part of the machine for doing this. Okay. Then in the smart, we have also the sticky reverse technology. This is a technology that in Europe we only have VR equipment, the smart machine, and this is how the machine is mixing the ingredients, the recipe inside of the tank, thanks to the electrical motor. So electrical motors gives you accuracy in terms of consistency, but allows you to create perfect mixing of ingredients. Why? Because in other brands machines that are using mechanical motors, the only way to mix the ingredients is mixing forward, always forward, always forward. So basically, we are creating some areas inside of the tank where there are more aggregation of ice crystals, making super compact and hard and strong and thick parts of ice. This is the other brand. But with VR, we can see that the electrical motor, maybe I can show you a little bit inside this. Right now, the machine is doing forward the mixing, but I'm doing this trick that the mixer can also hit backwards. Okay? It means a silly thing, but that is important because after mixing the ingredients inside of the tank, always forward to avoid this kind of compactations, the machine every 10 minutes goes backwards 10 seconds. So the machine allows you to mix the ingredients better than if you go just forward. You can avoid this kind of ice compactations inside of the tank. And also the ingredients are more, let me say, homogeneous now inside of the tank because you are moving in these two directions. There is a feature that only VR has right now in Europe. Okay? Not other brands has this kind of movement to movement inside of the tank. And again, electronic consistency control. Remember, the electronic consistency control allows you to control in more accuracy the density of the recipe, you know. Then I like to show this feature. This is an operation that maybe it's a little, you can think it's a little bit silly, but when you are working with this kind of equipment, it's important. Every feature that saves the operation, it's important. Why? Because it's the way that you are going to fill the machine. In other machines, you have to take the cover from the machine. Let's suppose you are in a Saturday night, a lot of people. You have a bucket with the batch, and you want to fill the machine, and you are working with another machine. In the bar, you are plenty of glasses of bartender staff. you know, for filling the machine with other brands, you have to take out the cover, search a place inside of the counter where you are filling the machine. So it's a little bit, it's overwhelming, you know, in this kind of scenarios. With the smart, you can just leave the frontal part of the lid fill. You don't have to take out any cover, something like that, and that's all. So then we have the smart check. Smart check, this is so technical. The smart check is basically a technology that gives you the information about how is performing the calling circuit. Okay. Other machines doesn't have this smart check, so it's a little bit blind. So let's suppose, no, when you are working with equipment and you don't have this smart check, maybe suddenly you can notify that the machine is not performing well. It's not freezing the product. The machine takes a lot of time to freeze the product. What is the next step? It's calling to the technician. The technician comes to your place to check your machine. This is a huge cost. We are talking around 70 euros per visit of the technician, just to notify that the machine, for example, has a refrigerant leak in the cooling circuit. Just for that, 70 euros you have to pay. But with VR equipment, through the display, you can check if the cooling circuit is performing well or not. So you can avoid this kind of technician callings, and you can say directly to the distributor, hey, I have a problem with my machine. There is a problem that doesn't happen so much, but in case that this kind of problem can happen, you can just call the distributor, hey, I have a problem with my cooling circuit. How you know that? Maybe the distributor asks you, well, this is because I see through the display that the cooling circuit is not doing well because the pressure of the cooling circuit is very low. Okay, so the distributor can swap you the machine, for example, very easy, and you can avoid this cost of a technician visit or waiting so much time because you don't understand which is the problem that you have with the cooling circuit. Okay, so right now we are going to talk about recipes and how to balance recipes with non-alcohol, okay? So the thing that we are going to do is we're going to check, we're going to see, understand how to do recipes without alcohol. If you agree, maybe we can do a pause and we can continue understanding how to develop recipes with alcohol, frozen cocktails, food cost, and this kind of stuff, okay? But, you know, let's do this part before frozen cocktail, and we can do a coffee stop, and let's continue with frozen cocktail. So continue with this part, and then will be a coffee pause. Perfect. Recipes with non-alcohol. Yeah, it's true that the demo is for frozen cocktails, okay? But I want to show you this part of the presentation, the recipes without non-alcohol, because it's also important to understand the effect of the sugar in the recipes that non have alcohol, okay? So when we are going to prepare recipes without alcohol, it's important to understand that there is a range that we recommend also for frozen cocktail, but we are talking recipes without alcohol. So then we have to focus about the quantity of sugar that the recipe needs to have. So our minimum that we recommend is 8% of sugar, okay? In technical terms, the quantity of sugar is also called bricks. This is why we say bricks, okay? So the minimum that we recommend is 8%, but our suggestion to get the best texture and best flavor, best sensation, best experience for a mocktail or for a regular slush, it will stay between 13 and 18. Okay, 8% is good as a technical point of view of the machine, but it's true that when we drink a frozen cocktail or a frozen drink, the perception of the sugar it's lower than when we drink in a liquid form. So that's the point because we recommend to stay between 13 and 18% because the same sensation that the customer is having when he drinks a juice, for example, with 10% of sugar is the same experience that the same customer will have drinking the same frozen juice with this quantity of sugar. Okay, because the temperature changes the perception and the flavor of the things. Well, maybe you are a little bit worried. What is happening if we developed a recipe with less than 8% of sugar? Okay, don't worry. The machine can work. Well, can work. The machine, there is not a problem for the machine. The only thing is because we are not adding so much sugar, the texture will be too much thick, okay, inside of the tank, and because of that, the electrical motor understand that the recipe is too thick, and the machine thinks itself, well, this is strange because I have low temperature, but the texture of the mix inside of the tank is too thick. So don't worry if you are going to use less sugar. You are not going to break anything inside of the machine. Okay? The machine has a security system that in case that the quantity of sugar is less than required, the mixer stops and advise the operator with an alarm into the display. When you say A19, it means that you have too much consistency or low quantity of sugar. Okay, the machine will stop the mixing system, the cooling circuit, and advise to the operator that there is a problem with the recipe. Okay, so this is a point that you can check again if the balance is doing correctly, if you need to put more sugar or whatever you want to add to improve the texture. How we are going to know the sugar quantity of the ingredients? When we are using ingredients of the supermarket, for example, for developing recipes, well, it's important to understand how we can get the sugar information of the ingredient. So for doing that, we have to check the nutritional label. Normally in the packaging of each ingredient, there is plenty of information about the ingredients, the quantities. We have to check for the nutritional value. The nutritional value, we have to search for carbohydrates, because obviously sugar is a carbohydrate. And inside of the group of carbohydrates, we have to search which kind of carbohydrates are sugars, okay? This is the point, this is the quantity of sugar that we have to take care when we develop the recipes without alcohol, okay? This is the information that we can find in every ingredient in the supermarket. How we are going to calculate the quantity of sugar in a recipe when we are using different kinds of ingredients? Obviously, first step is list all of the ingredients that we plan to use. Second step, we have to check this nutritional label on the packaging on the ingredient and search for the sugar quantity per 100 milliliters of ingredient. Then we have to get the total volume of the ingredients that we are using and calculate the quantity of sugar that each ingredient is adding to the final recipe. For example, this is a recipe, this is an example recipe that we have calculated very easy. We have the ingredient here at the left part of the table. We have the quantity of the ingredient, and we have the nutritional value information for each ingredient. Okay? So, in a soft drink, like a soda, a Coke, something like that, we have more or less 10 grams per 100 milliliter that in 3 liters of soft drinks gives to the recipe 300 grams of total sugar. Water obviously doesn't have sugar, but 300 grams of sugar for this kind of recipe of 9 liters, it's very few. We have to add more sugar. So we can add more sugar and more sugar for get the flavor. That gives a total of 1,590 grams of sugar per 9.6 liters of mix. It means that my recipe will have 16.6 bricks of sugar, that there is a correct quantity of sugar for our recipes that doesn't have alcohol. What is happening in recipes that doesn't have too much quantity of sugar? In that case, we avoided the sugar and the syrup, and per 9 liters of recipe, we have only 300 grams of sugar. This gives you a 3.7 bricks recipe that for the machine is too low quantity of sugar. But don't worry, we can solve this adding more sugar or different edulcorants. For example, in this slide, this is a, let me say, a pill why to follow when we are working with recipes that has, for example, from 0 to 4% of sugar in the nutritional value. We can solve this adding some edulcorants, some sugars. For example, you can add white sugar, that this is the common edulcorant that we can find in every store. But what is happening if you don't want to use sugar because you want to create some fancy or a different recipe with honey? Well, you can use this kind of different edulcorants. The only thing you have to know is that each different edulcorant has his own sweetness power and his own anti-freezing power. So, for example, for solving recipes that doesn't have any sugar, let me say water and sugar. Water doesn't have any quantity of sugar. If we want to do a recipe just mixing water and sugar, you can mix, for example, 107 grams of sugar per liter of water. In terms of honey, the same. But for example, if you want to use agave for a frozen cocktail, you don't need to use the same quantity because agave is more sweet, has more anti-freezing power than the sugar. Okay? This kind of slide is very useful for you when you try to create a frozen cocktail from 0. If you have some ingredients for creating the cocktail that doesn't have the minimum quantity of sugar, this allows you to know how many sugar or edulcorant need to add for achieving this minimum sugar for each ingredient. Very easy to follow. You don't have to think in anything. Well, maybe you can say, I don't want to add sugar in my recipes because there is a trend of zero sugar soft drinks, and I want to use this kind of zero sugar drinks. Well, let me introduce you the erythritol. Erythritol is a edulcorant right now that is trendy. It's plenty of erythritol in supermarkets. In Spain, for example, I am tired to see erythritol in every supermarket. Erythritol is a edulcorant, is a polyalcohol that allows you to give to the recipe the same texture than if you put sugar, but gives you the advantage to not being sugar. You can level the recipe as sugar-free, but the texture that you will have is similar or equal that if you are going to use sugar. This is the point. The thing of the erythritol that I doesn't like is that it's more expensive than sugar, obviously. Maybe 5 times more expensive than the sugar in Spain, and that is not so sweet as the white sugar. So you have to add more. So it means that we are going to increase the food cost of the cup. But if it's important for you, is just to understand that you can label this kind of recipes that is not going to use sugar, is going to use erythritol as sugar-free. If this is good for you for your marketing, this is a good option to use erythritol instead of sugar. Just to know, popular ingredients that use erythritol right now: sugar-free chewing gum, some ice creams, and the dark chocolate that is labeled as sugar-free is using erythritol as the main edulcorant. So there is erythritol is a component, is edulcorant that we can see commonly in other applications, other ingredients that already we are eating. And just to finish with the sugar part of the slide, there are exist a lot of products that has the minimum quantity of sugar. That basically means that we can open the bottle from that ingredients and fill the machine with that ingredient without calculating anything, because in the nutritional value we can see in the bottle that the sugar quantity of this kind of ingredients has more than 8%. Which one? For example, from fruits, juices, and lemonades has in the nutritional value more than 8% of sugar. It means that I can buy 10 liters of orange juice, for example, check the label, and if my label says me that the sugar quantity is more than 8%, I can open the bottle and fill directly from the bottle to the machine and press the production mode. There is not a problem with that. You can do a healthy frozen mocktail just with the juice without not adding more ingredient. The same for a lot of coffee and milk products like this stuff from Starbucks or other brands that normally this kind of stuff has more than 10% of sugar. The same, you can open the bottle and put directly on the machine, and obviously soft drink and energy drinks. There are the most common ingredients that has the correct quantity of sugar. And remember, in case that you have less quantity than this, for example, zero sugar soft drinks, we have to add edulcorants or sugar as we saw in the previous slides, or in case that we have a lot of sugar, like in concentrates, like in syrups, obviously there are so much sugar in this kind of product, sugar quantities more than 50%. In that case, we need to dilute with water or other some ingredients to not be a lot of sweet in our recipe. Okay, so the part of the sugar is ended. Let's do a coffee pause, and after some minutes, perfect. How do I adapt this with GBG? Can do the same things. With GBG machines, obviously you can work with this kind of recipes. The only thing is that with GBG machines, you cannot enjoy the same advantages of VA. That it means the vertical ventilation, the cooling circuit that it's perfectly adapted for frozen cocktails. So with GBG, obviously you can prepare this kind of stuff, but the thing is that you will need more time for gets ready, okay? Because the cooling circuit is not so powerful as this kind of equipment of V8. But yeah, you can work with the same recipes. Good. If you don't have any questions, we can normally 15, 20 minutes, perfect. We see you in 15, 20 minutes, okay? And we will see recipes with alcohol, food cost, and some case story to understand how much money you can do preparing frozen cocktails. See you later. Bye-bye. Okay, so let's continue with the big part of the presentation. The most important one, I think, is recipes with alcohol, frozen cocktails, obviously. So start again. When we do a frozen cocktail recipe, we need to respect a minimum quantity of alcohol, and there is also our suggestion. Okay, so when we are going to develop recipes with alcohol, we have to respect a minimum of 2% of ABV. ABV normally in terms of mixology and cocktail means the quantity of alcohol that a recipe has. So we recommend a minimum of 2% is the minimum that the machines needs or the recipe needs to be with a slash texture, but in terms of texture and experience for the customer, we recommend to stay between 5 and 16%. 5% if you want a more aperitivo frozen cocktail before dinner, something like that. Or if you want to serve a strong frozen cocktail, we recommend to stay up to 60%. Can you use more than 60% of alcohol? Obviously, yes. Obviously, yes. But we need to keep in mind some considerations when we are going to freeze recipes with more than 60% of alcohol. So basically, more alcohol has the recipe, more time we need or the machine needs to freeze the recipe. Alcohol is an anti-freezing ingredient, so more quantity of alcohol, it means more quantity of anti-freezing power. It means a lower temperature. So basically the three things that we have to consider when we are going to prepare frozen cocktail with the high quantity of alcohol, more than 20%, 60%, is that the machine will take longer time to freeze, okay, because the machine needs to get this low temperature. Then the temperature will be colder because the alcohol lower the freezing point of the final recipe. Again, remember, a lemon slash recipe will be frozen at 4 degrees. A frozen margarita will be frozen at minus 15 Celsius degrees. So we need more time for get that temperature. For sure, the ready-to-serve product will be colder than the regular lemon slash. And also, the alcohol changes the texture of the mix. So the alcohol has a rheology property that gives you a more creamy texture when more alcohol you add to the recipe. How we are going to understand the quantity of alcohol of each each liquor? We have to check the label of each spirit label, liquor label. Normally, this information is indicated on the frontal label, and this percentage that you can see in the label, it means the quantity of alcohol, the pure alcohol that this spirit has. For example, this one, 40% of alcohol, it means that per 100 milliliters of total drink, 40 milliliters are pure alcohol. Okay, this is important. After we will see that this is important to calculate the total alcohol that we have in a recipe. We need to understand how to find this kind of information. Well, when we prepare a recipe with spirit, with alcohol, you are not going to use just the liquor from the bottle and that's all. Normally, you are going to use a spirit, a liquor, and another ingredient that works as a dilution. Okay? So, how is the easiest way to create a frozen cocktail with few ingredients? You only, for the basic frozen cocktail, for the basic one, you only need 2 ingredients, liquor and dilution, or a base, okay? And how we are going to mix this kind of ingredients. Normally, we are going to put, for example, we recommend 2 bottles of liquor at 40% of alcohol with 5 liters of base. When we talk about spirits 40%, we are talking about rum, whiskey, vodka, gin, triple sec, tequila, okay? And we have to mix this kind of spirits with a base. When we talk about base, we can use soda, lemonades, soft drinks, fruit juice, espressos, cola drinks, okay? So there is a table, basic table, that how is easy, the easiest way to create frozen cocktail using just 2 drinks, spirit and the base. So for example, this kind of chart gives you information how to create your first frozen cocktail. You can use 2 bottles of vodka. Normally vodka is around 700 milliliters per bottle. And you can mix it with 5 liters of base. This calculation, this proportion gives you a range of alcohol, a total quantity of alcohol, a percentage of pure alcohol in a final recipe that is in the range that we recommend, between 5 and 16, okay? This is a table for the people that doesn't want to think, doesn't want to calculate anything. Then, if we want to use more quantity for the batch, because we want to fill the machine up to around 10 liters, we can mix 3 bottles of 700 milliliters ones with 8,000 liters of base. So this chart is calculated for people that doesn't want even measure the ingredients. You can add directly the liquor inside of the tank without any measure, because normally every bottle of spirit is around 700 milliliters. So in that case, 2,100 milliliters, it means 3 bottles of 700 milliliters with 8 liters of a base. If you are going to work with a low alcohol recipe, we have also this chart. This chart respects the minimum quantity of alcohol. For example, you can do a frozen cocktail just with 1 bottle, it means 700 milliliters, with 9 liters of the base. It gives you a low quantity alcohol recipe that still works with the equipment, with a 2% of alcohol. This one, for example, is a very easy to work frozen margarita, just 3 ingredients, 2 liquors and 1 base, and it's very easy to follow. This is an easy way to do a margarita. Just we need tequila, triple sec, and the lemonade. In the supermarket, you can buy this kind of ingredients, and combining in that way, that is the same that this chart, 2,100 milliliters with 8 liters of base. If we can make here the mathematics, it's lemonade works as the base. We have here 8 liters, and we have also the liquors, tequila, triple sec. In that case, we are using 2 liquors, 2 spirits, but combining both liquors, we have the 2 liters, 100 milliliters of total quantity of spirit. Also, this one, vodka sunrise. This one is another example using just a base and a liquor. In that case, this recipe is made with just 1 liquor, just 1 spirit, but using 2 bases. Okay? So, in that case, we are going to work with the vodka, the orange juice, and a grenadine syrup. This grenadine syrup is just 1 liter because we want to add some sweetness in our recipe, okay? It's true that the base is correct because we have the 8 liters here. We are using just 1 bottle of vodka, 700 milliliters, But remember, in the chart, this is the minimum quantity. We are using 1 bottle of liquor with 9 liters of base. In our case, the base is made with the orange ice, the orange juice, and the grenadine syrup. 8 liters of orange juice with 1 liter of grenadine syrup makes the 9 liter quantity of base that we are going to mix with 1 bottle of vodka. It gives a recipe with around 3% of alcohol, not so much, that maybe it's a good offer for an aperitivo, something like that, something soft for a before dinner drink. So, but what is happening if we want to add more ingredients? We have to know how to calculate the end quantity, the total quantity of alcohol in our recipe. So, first of all, we have to list all of the ingredients that we have in our cocktail. In a frozen margarita, we have tequila, the triple sec. We have to add also the base, in that case the lemonade. Then we have to control the percentage of alcohol that each ingredient has. It's important. And then when we have all of the quantity of alcohol of each ingredient, we have to calculate the total volume of the ingredients of the recipe. And using the percentage and the mathematics, we are going to calculate the total quantity of alcohol that we have. Okay? So in that recipe, this is an Americano recipe, and we split all of the ingredients in 4 columns. Okay? First one, we have the ingredients. For Americano recipes are very basic, very easy to find, follow frozen cocktail. Just 3 ingredients: Campari, red vermouth, and soda. That's all. That's all. How we are going to combine? How we are going to use the mathematics to create the cocktail? So we have to add here the quantity of the ingredients, okay, and gives you the total. Then we have to control the ABV, the percentage of alcohol, or if of each quantity of alcohol of each ingredient. And after doing this, you can calculate with the percentage of alcohol and the quantity how many liters of total alcohol is adding the company. Okay? In that case, the only thing we have to do, the mathematics to do, is we have to calculate 24% of 2 liters 8, and it will give to the recipe 672 milliliters of total alcohol into the recipe. Which other ingredient is giving ethanol, is giving alcohol? Red vermouth. In that case, the red vermouth is giving 60%. Okay? If we do the multiplication, gives in a total of 448 milliliters. If we calculate the total alcohol and we know the total amount of the liquid, we can calculate, following this formula, the ABV of the recipe. In the next slide, we are going to calculate from zero a recipe using this kind of logic. This is just to understand the logic that there is behind this kind of calculations, to understand if we are doing recipes with good quantity or quantity of ABV. But maybe you don't want to calculate anything. You want to use some frozen cocktails directly from the bottles with any calculations. It is possible to use this kind of drinks directly from the bottle. There are in the supermarket some ingredients that has alcohol, and the quantity of alcohol is not so high, is not so low, it's in the point, it's in the correct range that we recommend that you can use in the beer equipment. So for example, a beer cider, wine, pre-made cocktails, the supermarket. If you go to the row that it's plenty of liquors and spirits, you can see that sometimes there are bottles with ready-to-drink mojito, ready-to-drink margarita. Normally, this kind of pre-made cocktails are around 16% of alcohol, 14% of alcohol. This is a correct range for working with the machine. So you can use this kind of drinks, open the bottle, fill the machine with that drink, and put production mode. If you don't want to do any calculation, you can work in that way. When we have to work in the recipe, when the quantity of alcohol is below 2%, zero alcohol drinks, for example, in that case, we need to add sugar or add alcohol from the spirit, because 0% sugar, 0% alcohol is not good for the machine. In case that we are working with ingredients with more than 60% of alcohol, we need to add some base to dilute this huge quantity of alcohol. That the machine will work if we put ingredients with more than 60% of alcohol, but the flavor will not be very good because the perception of the alcohol will change when we froze a recipe. Okay, and the point is mastering frozen cocktail recipes. We know that sugar is important. We know the correct range of alcohol. The next step is to understand how to calculate from zero, with ingredients from the supermarket, a good quality frozen cocktail. Which are the parameters that gives you a frozen cocktail recipes? So, what makes a frozen cocktail taste great? So basically, not only frozen cocktail, also in the cocktail sector, when bartenders design the cocktails, take care about three things. Okay, the target is to create a balance with three components: sweetness, acidity, and ABV. If you are in the correct range of each part, for sure you will have a correct cocktail or frozen cocktail. That is important because why we need to control how to calculate ABV, sweetness, and acidity. If you are in the correct range of on each point of each group, you will have a correct frozen cocktail. And in this demo, we will see how to calculate this from zero. But where these kind of flavors come from? ABV, obviously, the alcohol, the pure alcohol, is given by the spirits, by the liquors, by the wines, beer. Okay? This is the ingredient that is going to give the ABV, the ethanol part. Then we have the acidity. When we talk about acidity, we are talking about, for example, if you remember, a daiquiri, a mojito, a frozen margarita, as always, lemon juice. Lemon juice is because the citric acid is essential for having a good experience when we drink a cocktail. Yeah, remember, cocktail is always a combination between ABVs, acidity, given by the lemon juice or other juices with high content of citric acid, and the sweetness. So in this case, acidity is given by lemon juice, for example, citrus juices, or even powders of citric acid. You can also use powders of citric acid, but I think this is so chemical for doing with frozen cocktail. Sweetness. We have sugars, we have syrups, we have also fruit juices, that some fruit juices are also given acidity and sweetness. So there is no just ingredients in one group and other ingredients in one group. Maybe there are ingredients that gives acidity and sweetness at the same time. Triple sec, for example, is a liquor that is giving ethanol, and triple sec also has sugar, so it's given also sweetness in our end recipe. And how to balance a frozen cocktail recipe. This is the range that we recommend when we design a frozen cocktail. To stay, if you stay in each component in that range, for sure you will have a super fancy, a super tasteful, good frozen cocktail. It's just controlling that you are inside of that range, okay? So ABV, remember, you have to stay between 5%, 16%. Acidity is also important, not so much, but it's also important to give to the customer this citric component to stay between 0.5 until 1.5. And the sweetness, remember, the same as we saw in the previous slides, between 13 and 80%. When we calculate a recipe and we stay in those ranges, we will have a good quality frozen cocktail with a great flavor. Good, but maybe you can think, well, where I can find the information of ABV, acidity, sweetness for each component? Well, ABV is easy. You can check the label of the spirit, of the liquor, and directly from the label, you can know the ABV quantity of each spirit. Acidity is a little bit difficult. You have to search sometimes in internet, okay? Maybe some manufacturers of fruit purees knows this information, and in the technical sheet of the ingredient, it's also given the acidity level of that fruit puree. But sometimes you have to work with information that you can find on internet, or even the database that Beer Consulting can give to you. And the sweetness is very easy. Sweetness is also controlling the nutritional label on the packaging, and in that part of the packaging, you can check which is the sugar content of the ingredients that are going to give sweetness. This, for example, is how a recipe is designed. This is the piña colada, but you can see the quantity, ABV, a first column that controls the ABV, acidity, and sweetness, okay? These three rows gives you a total percentage of ABV, acidity, and sweetness. And there is a thing that, this is an example that we are going to develop a recipe from zero. With this is a gift that we can send to you. This is our calculator for recipes, okay? If you scan the QR from the slide, you can download an Excel from the consulting site, where you can calculate all of these percentages for the cocktails. Very easy. You don't have to calculate using mathematics and this kind of stuff. We are going in this presentation to calculate manually, okay? But just to know that you can do it very faster using that tool that Beer Consulting is giving to you. You can download from the slide, or if someone doesn't want to download right now, we can send you the link to download after the presentation. Just to know, you only have to put here the ingredients, then you have a row to put the ethanol, the acidity level of the component, and the sweetness. And depending on the quantity that you are writing here, this tool gives you information, which is the level of ABV that you have in the total recipe, the acidity, and the sugar, to get in control of the recipe that you are developing. Okay? So right now we are going to calculate a recipe, for example, using ready-to-use ingredients. I have here, for example, vodka. As we can see, this vodka has 80%, 40% of alcohol, sorry. Then I want to mix my vodka with this coconut rum, in this case Malibu. This one has a 21% of alcohol. Then why not mix it with some pineapple juice, cranberry juice also, and we are going to check if these kind of ingredients are going to give a good recipe. So for doing that, we are going to do manually. So first ingredient will be vodka. Then Malibu, case or coconut rum. Then we have pineapple juice. What more? Cranberry juice. Perfect. So those are the four ingredients that we have here. So let's start with, I want to do a 6-liter batch. So for doing that, I have here one bottle. My bottle is 700 ml. Then we have another bottle of Malibu of 700. Perfect. Then we have here 2 liters of pineapple juice. Each bottle is with 1 liter. And we have here cranberry juice. Okay, cranberry juice is 1 liter. Okay, at the moment we don't have here 6 liters, sorry, but let's write all of the information about the components. Okay, so. So ABV, first of all, acid, sweet. Okay? You have to split the screen in these 3 columns. Okay? So let's start with the vodka. My vodka has 40%. Acid, zero acid for the vodka, and vodka is not sweet, so zero also. Then we have coconut rum. Coconut rum has 21%. Acid, zero, and Malibu has 60% of sugar. Then pineapple juice. Pineapple juice, obviously, we have here zero as ABV. Acidity, in our database on the previous slide, you can see that acidity for pineapple juice is 0.9%. And the sweetness of this one is 11%. Good. Then cranberry juice. Cranberry juice, the same. ABV 0. Cranberry is not giving alcohol to the recipe. Then we have the acidity. Cranberry juice is a little bit acid. We have 3% 6 of acidity, and as a sweetness we have 13%. Okay, so those are the values that at the moment we have here. We have to calculate the total of this. So at the moment we have 700. We have here a total of 4 liters 400 ml. We need to understand the quantity of ABV, acid, and sweetness. So let's go to calculate this total alcohol for the vodka. 280 ml. Let's go to the Malibu, the same. 700, 0.21. Okay, you can follow the steps using the tool that I sent you in the previous screen, and you are going to do it faster. Gram of sugar, and is 0, 0. Pineapple juice. Pineapple juice is giving acid and sweet. I have the calculation here. Pineapple juice is giving to the recipe 18 milliliters of pure citric acid, and cranberry 36. As a sweetness, cranberry is giving 150 grams of sugar, and this one, oh, sorry. Pineapple juice is giving 220 grams of sugar, and cranberry is giving 153 grams of sugar. So at the moment, we have these components, but we need to control that those values are correct, okay? So let's do a first calculation. This calculation, if the total of the alcohol is here. Then we have to do the blend for the acidity. But 44 ml of pure citric acid, and for the sugar, so in that recipe we have let's do the calculation of the bill. Perfect. .7% of ethanol. Then with the acidity we have 1.2% of acidity. Is a little bit sour, but it's correct. And what about sugar? Okay, we are in sugar in a 10%, 0.5% of sugar. So we have a correct value for the ABV, for the alcohol, a correct value for the acidity, but we are a little bit low in terms of sweetness. So we need to rebalance a little bit this kind of recipe. Okay? So given this, I have an idea that we need to increase the sugar part of the recipe, okay? So why not adding some syrup or something like that to increase this quantity of sugar? Let's try doing this. This will change for sure. Well, my suggestion is to add simple syrup. Simple syrup is an ingredient that always will help you for achieving the correct quantity of sugar. For doing simple syrup is very easy. You only have to mix one part of sugar with one part of water, and that's all. You will have your own simple syrup, homemade, that it will help you to balance correctly the recipe. And for me, 9% of alcohol was very high. I prefer to stay in a 7%, so I'm going to add some water. So I'm going to add 600 ml of simple syrup and 1 liter more of water. Okay? So right now we have a total of ingredients of 6 liters. Remember, 6 liters is the minimum quantity for working with a smart. And let's see how it changes. So this is going to change a little bit. Because simple syrup doesn't give alcohol, doesn't give acid, but simple syrup is going to add sweetness on our recipe. Which percentage has simple syrup? Well, in our beer consulting tool, we have calculated this for you, but just to know, simple syrup is always 61% of sugar, okay? And water, obviously, 0, 0, 0, is just for diluting the quantity of alcohol, acid, and sweetness that we have. So let's see how resolve this recipe doing this with this configuration. Okay? So ABV, we need to calculate the total ABV that we have, 280 plus 7. It's a total of 427. Then total acidity, 18 plus 56, 54 ml of citric acid, and the sweetness, 220, 153, and this is going to give us 600 grams of sugar. So this is a total of 'll have some space here. Simple syrup. This is the sugar that we are adding thanks to the simple syrup, and it gives a total of 844 grams. So let's check how it results with these new addings of ingredients. So we have the ABV. We have to divide this number between this number and multiply by 100. It gives a total ABV of 7.1%. That is in the correct range between 5 and 16. This is good. Let's mark this. Then what about acidity? We have 54 ml of total citric acid. Let's go how results with this new total quantity of ingredients. So this one, 54 divided to 6 liter, is giving 0.9% of acidity. It's a value in the middle, more or less, between 0.5, 0.5 and between 1.5. So it's perfect. It's not so sour, not so sweet. So let's mark another check. And for the sweetness part, let's do the same. This is a total grams of 844 that we have to divide through the total. Giving 40% of sweetness in total. So this is how a frozen cocktail is calculated, okay? Basically, we are doing this in a manual mode, but with the tool that you are going to use with the slide that I sent you, it's very easy, it's faster. You don't have to calculate like this every time, okay? Okay, let's start with the questions also. Okay, so basically, what we have to do is, first of all, list all of the ingredients, okay? And the quantity of each ingredient. Then, through the percentage of the ABV, acidity, and sweetness, calculate the pure, in the case of the ABV, calculate the total amount of alcohol that each ingredient is giving to the recipe, okay? In the case of the recipe, I am using just one bottle of 700 milliliters of vodka, this one. If my vodka has 30% of alcohol, it means that the total amount of alcohol that vodka is giving is 280. That is the 40% of that number, okay? So you have to do all of this kind of stuff for each ingredient. Some ingredients has acid part, some others has sweet part. How to know when use this kind of ingredients, which ingredients use in more quantity, thanks to the tool that we provide to you. You know, first of all, you have to add the quantity that you think is correct in your imagination, and the tool or this kind of calculations give you an idea where you are in terms of ABV, acidity, and sweet. Maybe you can notify, like me, that the sweetness was not so good because was very low, 10%, just 10%. I recommend to stay between 13 and 18. So thanks to this calculation, I can notify that ABV was correct, acidity was correct, but sugar level was not correct. So at the moment that I detect that my sugar is not correct, I have to add more ingredients here to balance all of these parameters, okay? This is the point. You have more questions, maybe? How do you decide to add that quantity of water and syrup? Okay, so it's always following this. when I put my ingredients, I can calculate the values of ABV, acid, and sweetness. At the moment that I calculate that I am not good on those ranges, is the moment that I decide to add more syrup or more water. For example, if I calculate all of this and I see that my percentage of alcohol is, let me say, 24, it's obvious that I need to dilute this. It's obvious that I need to add water, for example, to reduce this quantity of percentage of ABV. In case that for the syrup, the other ingredient was the syrup, when we have to decide what syrup. So in case that we see that our sugar level is below 13, my case, we can use syrup to increase the sugar level of the total recipe. Okay? Let me say that this gives you a spot to understand how you are in terms of parameters on the recipe, and then after checking the results, you have to decide. It's too strong in terms of alcohol. I need to dilute with some water. It's too low in terms of sugar. I need to increase sugar. Okay? Have more question maybe, another one. And how much water and how much sugar to make the syrup? Okay, I think you are asking for the simplest syrup. Simplest syrup is very easy to do. It's just mixing 1 part of water, 1 part of sugar. It means 1 kilo of water, 1 kilo of sugar. Always you have to mix the same parts, thinking in weight, not in volume. Okay? This is a standard syrup that every bartender knows. I recommend you, when you are working in this kind of recipes, prepare a huge batch of simple syrup. It's very easy. You can store them into the fridge. It can stay around 1 month into the fridge, because due to the huge quantity of sugar, the contamination is not a thing that is going to happen in this kind of syrup. It's very easy to do. Okay? So the next thing to do is prepare this kind of cocktail. We have here the calculation. I'm going to have my stuff here. Okay. Perfect. So, first of all, we said that we need to add the vodka I have here Tatiana that is going to help me. So, perfect. Okay, but why not adding more cranberry juice, for example? Yeah, this is another solution that we can consider. In case that we don't want to add some simple syrup, we can add some cranberry juice, but the problem here, or the problem that you can find, is that cranberry juice doesn't have so much sugar. So if we put a lot of cranberry juice to achieve the correct quantity of sugar, maybe we are diluting so much the rest of the components, the acid and the ABV. So maybe it's correct to think in adding more cranberry juice, but we have to consider that maybe the ABV will be very low. Okay, that's the reason because we prefer to add more simple syrup. Okay, so in that point, Tatiana is adding to the bucket the bottle of vodka. This is very easy to do because we have calculated this with the quantity of the bottle. First of all, you know, the liquor. Always, I recommend to try to balance the recipe using the quantity of the bottle. I know that there is no easy, but it's possible. but it allows you doing like this, like Tatiana is doing. Right now is mixing the coconut rum, the Malibu. He is not doing any measuration because we have calculated this with the quantity of the bottle, 700 milliliters. The same for the pineapple juice. We have both this pineapple juice in a 1 liter bottle. In that case, we are using 2 liters. We are using 2 liters. That is very easy, just directly from the bottle. Normally, this kind of pineapple juice is coming in formats of 1 liter, 1 liter and a half. I recommend you to get this information before calculating to understand, because we can calculate like this, or we can calculate without taking attention to the quantity of the package. Okay, in that case, obviously you have to measure like this, measuring jars for more concrete quantities. But this recipe we have calculated using the volume of the packaging, and it is correct. Right now, we are going to mix the cranberry juice. The same, this cranberry juice is coming in a format of 1 liter. And then when we mix all of the ingredients, we recommend you to put all in a big bucket, because the next step will be mix in a tool like this to be more homogeneous when we mix all of the ingredients. Simple soup, in that case, we have prepared this in before. We are adding the syrup, and this is very easy to do with sugar. One part, remember, 1 part of sugar, 1 part of water. That's all. You can do it very easy. In 5 minutes, you will have the simple syrup ready to serve. And the last ingredient will be the water, that you can take it from the tap directly, very easy to find. And this recipe is inspired, it's for everybody, starts to be holiday period. So it's a recipe that we use some ingredients that, remember this holiday period, exotic places like pineapple juice, coconut, vodka. So yeah. Perfect, we are adding the last ingredient. We have the 6 liters here, and the next step will be mixing all together. You have an homogeneous recipe. The good thing about this, using the slide machine and the closing portal, is that most of the ingredients are in liquid format. So basically, mixing all together is very easy. It's not like mixing powders that you have to control that everything is homogeneous. This is very easy to mix. Most of our customers fill directly from the bottle the recipe into the machine. Let's also introduce the recipe inside of the Smart. It's very easy. Spot. Yeah, it smells from here. It seems it will be a good frozen cocktail. Thank you. Right now, it's with the recipe. Let's put the machine in production. Okay. If you see this mixer is starting with a smart machine, it's also important to know that you can work with just 1 bowl. In that case, I recommend you to work in just 1 bowl, because this one is empty. It doesn't make sense working with both. Smart machine can allow you to work like this. Okay. And this is normally how an operator works with the equipment. Calculate the mix, prepare the mix in a bucket, fill the machine, and wait until the machine is ready to start. Let's do another calculation. In that case, we go for the dream. We have calculated a recipe for a frozen cocktail that is ready to serve into the glass. But let's suppose this situation, no? Where you only have space for just one machine, but you want to serve different kind of frozen cocktails. One solution is installing a huge quantity of slime machines, one machine preparing different flavor, but let's suppose that you only have investment for just one equipment. The only thing you can do is prepare a neutral alcoholic base. It means the daiquiri base, for example, that then you can decorate or you can add the flavor into the glass. Okay, so in that point, you prepare just one recipe in just one machine, but the flavor is selected with syrup in the glass. We have customers working in that way. How we are going to calculate the recipe in that way? It's going to So in that way, we are going to use room for a daiquiri base. Obviously, we need room. We need lemon juice for the acidity part. Also, simple syrup. Simple syrup is your best friend when you do frozen cocktails. And water for diluting this huge quantity of alcohol that the room is going to do. Okay? Just for ingredients, let's do the calculation. Room. We have lemon juice. This is a basic base for a daiquiri, but very good. We have also simple syrup. And the water. Just to know, simple syrup, we are doing like this, okay? But most of the syrup that we can find on internet, on supermarket, has more or less always the same quantity, around 60% of sugar. No? In case that we want to create this daiquiri, adding that flavored syrup is also possible because the quantity of sugar will be the same more or less. Okay? So in that case, we are going to add 2 bottles of 700 milliliters in a 1040 ml. Lemon juice, almost 1 liter. Simple syrup, 1 liter. And water, 2 liters and a half. And always the same, ABV, acid, sweet. Well, room has 40%, but we don't have acidity, we don't have sweetness in the room. You know, maybe you can think room has sugar. No, room doesn't have sugar. We have to take care about the sugar of the room because room is without sugar. Then we have lemon juice. Lemon juice, you can do it by yourself using natural lemons or you can buy a ready to use lemon juice. In that case, 0 for the ABV of the lemon. Acidity has 6%. It's a very acidic ingredient, but is giving us some value for the sugar. Then simple syrup, 0 ABV, always 0 acidity for the simple syrup because we are mixing sugar with water, but as a sugar quantity, we're talking about 61.5%. Water obviously 0, 0, 0. Let's go to calculate the concrete quantity of each one, okay? So 40% of this quantity is 560 ml. This is the total that we are going to have here, ABV. Acidity, just the lemon juice is giving acidity. It means that is a 48 milliliters of pure citric acid. And for the sweetness, if we do this calculation, it's giving a total of, let's do the calculation. Yeah, 825 grams of sugar. How many quantity of total ingredients we have here? 6 liters. If we do the calculations like we did in the previous, it gives a percentual of 9.3% of ABV. Is a little bit more strong than the previous one, but it's okay because it's a base. We are going to mix it with a syrup in the glass, so in the end result in the glass will be a little bit lower. It's okay to stay in this value for the ABV. Then for the acidity, we have 0.8%. A value in the middle is also good for a daiquiri. We don't know if we are going to mix it with a lemon syrup that will increase in the glass this kind of the value. And the sweetness, we are going to be at 30.70% of sweetness. That we are always in the correct range for each component. Okay, this is a neutral base that we have developed for mixing with syrup into the glass. Okay, so Tatiana has mixed all of the ingredients in that bucket. At the same way, we are going to work with the drink for preparing this recipe. For filling the machine, we recommend to use this kind of jars. It's better for filling because maybe you are mixing all of the ingredients in a huge bucket, maybe 10 liters. Not all the people can manage a bucket plenty of 20 liters. It's a little bit heavy for someone. So it's okay if we work like this. We prepare in a good huge bucket all of the mix of the ingredients, and we use a little one just for filling. Always we are doing 6 liters, that good quantity. Perfect. So the machine is filled. Let's add the production mode. So while the machine is working with the recipe, let's check some considerations about the recipes, tips, tricks that we need to consider when we develop this kind of recipe. Okay? So the first consideration is how the frozen format changes the perception of the things. Okay? So when we drink a liquid cocktail, the perception of the alcohol and the sweetness is different when we drink the same cocktail. When we drink the same cocktail at the same level, okay? The perception of the alcohol will be increased in the frozen format, and the sweetness will be decreased. Thus, we need to decrease the amount of alcohol and increase the sweetness level respect to a liquid cocktail. It's important to note that this is the way, because we are doing like this. The good point about this is that you can save in the food cost of the cup, because for the customer, for having the same experience when he drinks the frozen cocktail, you will be developing the recipe without less quantity of without less quantity of alcohol. So it means that the spirit part, the quantity of spirit that normally is the ingredient which higher cost will be decreased. It means that the food cost of the total cup will also be decreased. It means that you can do a saving around 50% even. 50%. So operational tips that will suggest you to work with frozen cocktail. We recommend you not to add ice. Yeah, it's important to add the ingredients in a shape format, okay? But it doesn't mind that we recommend you to add ice into the machine. Ice is too strong for be managed for the mixer. It's important to not add or frozen fruit, for example. Well, the machine is good, but the mixer, we have to take care about the texture of the ingredients that we are adding into the machine. If we want to plain to use frozen fruit, is preferring to blend it with the other ingredients in a big bucket to convert it into a puree. Okay? Always, if you want to save some time, you can pre-chill the ingredients that you are going to use in the recipe in the fridge. So, for example, we were including the ingredients at room temperature, but in case that we want to save time, we want to store all the liquor, all the lemon juice, all of the things inside of the fridge. So at the time that we are going to fill the machine, the products, the ingredients are already chilled, so we can cut some time during preparation. Then the density control is important to understand the density that we want to serve with the cocktail. As you know, you can control through the user menu. We want to serve a thicker frozen cocktail, increasing the density level. Remember, using the Dream, you can select from 1 to 100. 100 means thicker texture, 1 more liquid. And in a Smart, you can select from 1 to 10. Okay, 10 it means more thicker texture for the frozen cocktail. Normally, remember, I recommend you to stay at around 7 in the Smart, 60, 70 of value for the consistency of the frozen cocktail. Then another tip for the acidity. Acidity is difficult to find information about the acidity of the fruits. Normally, you will want to find the acidity for the fruits, but normally it's difficult to find this kind of information. How you can convert it? Well, normally it's easier to find the pH value for the fruit or the juice for each ingredient, and there is a table that allows you to convert the pH level into acidity. Okay, so this kind of pH gives you an idea of which kind of quantity of citric acid you can do with the fruit. Okay, we have a question, I think. How you set the consistency with GBG? I think you are talking about GBG machines. GBG machines are machines that has the control consistency at the rear of the machine. It's manual. It's a screw, red screw or black screw, depending on the model, that if you go to the rear of the machine, you will see a screw that, turning clockwise, you will see how a support is moving from one number to another number at the rear part of the machine, and the scale of that machine is from 1 to 5. Okay, always the same. Higher number, it means thicker consistency for the machine. Okay, so it's manual. I think you have to check for the right bowl. Is that you are working with two-ball machine, the right bowl, the rear part, you will see a manual screw that it gives you the regulator for the consistency of the drink. Okay? Okay, so right now we have the cocktail inside of the machine. We have the cocktail inside of the machine, and we want to sell the frozen cocktail into the bar, into the restaurant. How we are going to sell the frozen cocktail? Which are our suggestions? Well, we recommend to use this kind of stuff, flavor tags. This is optional that is only for the gear equipment. This is a blackboard with flavor tag. It means that you can write here the flavor with a chalk, something like that, and then next day you can erase the word that the flavor of the recipe and write the new one. So if this is important, yeah, of course, because if you frozen cocktail in a slush machine is not so popular. So maybe or normally when a customer enters to a restaurant and see the stuff inside of the machine, automatically by culture is going to think that is the boring lemon recipe without alcohol that is always serving this kind of restaurants. But if you use this, you can write here the flavor of the cocktail, for example, frozen margarita or frozen holiday stuff, okay? And automatically the customer will be a little bit surprised, a little bit curious about the product inside, and for sure it will help to develop more sales about the frozen cocktail. Okay? Then highlight premium ingredients. When we use in the recipe premium ingredients like blue spirulina, natural orange juice, it's important to communicate, create a little bit of storytelling to our customers that in this machine we are going to create a frozen cocktail that we have used this natural juice from the store of close to me or blue spirulina that I have bought in a special store. If we do a little bit of storytelling, telling to the customer the ingredients of the recipe, will increase this kind of stuff for the recipe. Then it's important to know the customer preferences. It's important to understand that maybe a frozen spritz is not going to work in Italy because in Italy, for example, spritz is considered in liquid form. If you think, for example, that creating a frozen spritz is a good idea, let me say that it's not a good idea because a lot of people consider that spritz is in liquid form. So when you are serving a frozen spritz, normally you are not giving what the customer is expecting. So be careful about that. It's better to serve not more note frozen cocktail like piña colada here in Italy, for example, or a frozen mojito in this kind of frozen format that not a very adding frozen cocktail in the culture of the people. And there are some examples of some frozen cocktails that we have developed just to know which kind of profits, which kind of selling price people is doing with frozen cocktails. So the first one is Dragon Kiss. Dragon Kiss is a frozen cocktail that we developed for luxury hotels. You can see it's plenty of premium ingredients like dragon fruit powder, maracuya syrup. It's plenty of ingredients. Imagine if you have to prepare this cocktail one-to-one. It's out of time, but with the machine, you have to mix all of these ingredients just one time, and the machine will serve the frozen cocktail ready to drink faster. So if we calculate the food cost of each ingredient, for this cup that you see in the image is around 300 ml, the food cost is around 2.62 euros, just that. Let me say that if you sell this frozen cocktail at 9 euros, the profit that you will be doing is around 6 euros 38. Keep in mind this percentage, 70% is normally the profit that you need to be, that is the normal profit of the sector of the cocktail and the frozen cocktail. So this kind of calculation will serve you to understand if you are selling the frozen cocktail in a good way or not. Frozen margarita, for example. This one is a little bit different than the previous one. That one, we are using lemon juice. We are going agave syrup because we want to give this smoky flavor to the recipe. But always the same. As you can see, the profit for each cup, like you see on the image, is around 6.37 euros. It's a huge profit just per cup. So this is, we recommend to work with frozen cocktail. With a regular cocktail, it's difficult to achieve this kind of profits. Yeah, in margin, of course, yeah. But it's important to understand that the profit in this kind of product, it's very high. Then this one, Sakura Hanami. Sakura Hanami is another cocktail that we developed for Japan when Japan was in cherry blossom flower. In this one, we use more premium ingredients, okay? But as you can see, if you can calculate the food cost of the cup using this, you can add the selling price to be under the 70% of profit. Another one using whiskey, always the same. This one is using maple syrup, blueberry syrup. No, just to know different versions that we can do. Bitter orange is the version of the Aperol Spritz, but in frozen format. You can see processed wine, Aperol, water, ingredients that you can find in any store, orange juice, lemon juice. Very easy to work. The food cost of the total cup is around 2 euros. And you can sell this cup at 7 euros. It's the normal price for a normal Aperol Spritz. So the profit that you will do is almost 5 euros per cup. Then it is possible to work with beer. Yeah, it's also possible. The only thing is that beer, when we work with beer, we will be working in a ABV, in a low ABV. But this kind of recipe, we developed that for a bars that they were serving a lot of beer and they wanted to convert this beer in a frozen cocktail concept. And we developed this. They were interested in a very few food cost. You know, this cup of almost half liter, the food cost is less than 1 euro, 0.62. That selling this cup at 3 euros is not so much. It's for almost a pint of beer. You know, you are going to do almost 8% of profit. It's so much. You can pay the machine very fast. Then we have this kind of stuff without alcohol. It's also important to take care about the mocktails. Mocktails are, let me say, cocktails without alcohol. You can do in that way. The only thing you have to avoid is to calculate the cocktail, but you can stay in the same terms of acidity and sweetness that we saw in the previous slide. But always, the profit that you can do is around 70%. Strawberry lemonade, another fancy mocktail, very popular. This is the classic lemonade converted in a strawberry version. Just to know that you can also work with strawberry puree, okay, with natural fruit. And it means that working in that way, you will serve almost half liter glass in a food cost at around 1 euro, that the profit is almost 4 euro per cup. It's so much. You can pay the machine very fast. This one is an energy drink version. It's like the Red Bull, the Burn, but using a standard recipe, just adding caffeine in a powder form. So just to understand that you can do whatever you want with the equipment. It's just a regular recipe that just adding the caffeine powder, you are converting a standard recipe in an energy drink, frozen drink. Very easy, a huge profit. And Roy study, let's use a frozen cocktail recipe to calculate how we are going to recover the cost of the machine. So remember, let's suppose that we are serving this recipe of frozen margarita. Remember, 6.57 of profit per cup. So the calculation is that way. In this kind of graph, you can see at the left part of the graph in red, the bars means the investment that the operator has to do with the machine. In that case, it means to the smart. Okay, this is the cost that the operator has to do when he's buying the machine. But serving just 20 portions per day and opening the restaurant 8 days per month. Okay, repeat, 20 portions per day and just opening 8 days per month. This is how you are going to cover the cost of the machine. So you can see that in just 6 months, this bar is converting from red to green. When this bar is going to convert to green, it means that you are covered the cost of the equipment. Okay? Basically, that it's very easy to recover the cost of the machine. There is not so much effort. You don't have to sell huge quantity of cocktails for recovering the cost of the machine. The profit is so high with this kind of recipes, and well, that's the reason, because you can cover the cost of the machine so fast. So finally, case history. Okay, we have Suntago. Suntago is the biggest water park in Europe. It's a typical place that you want to go holiday. It's very funny, plenty of pools, and inside of the swimming pools, there is bars that the people inside of the swimming pool is going to drink frozen cocktail. So Suntago wanted to add in the frozen cocktail menu the machine, and we installed a third bowl smart, as you see on the picture. Also, beer consulting, they were talking with me. We developed this kind of recipe from zero, using the syrups that they were already using. And then, after 6 months, we asked about how they were working with the machine, the results, and this kind of stuff. And they told that in just 5 months, they covered the cost of the machine, just serving 850 portions in just 6 months. That's not so much. It means around 7 portions per day. It's not so much. And in this amount of time, they covered the cost of the equipment. Then we have the Kiri Palace. The Kiri Palace is a beach bar in Magaluf, Balearic Islands. They brought 6 brewing machines like this for preparing the frozen cocktails. And basically, you can think, well, 6 brewing machines are a huge investment. And there is a huge investment, obviously. The cost of 6 brewing machines, we are talking that in this price, the cost of the equipment is around 50,000 per machine. So keep in mind the cost of 6 brewing. But they sold a lot of portion of frozen cocktail, 7% of profit margin. They just in 3 months covered the cost of the 6 drink machines, okay? Because they served in €8 each portion in a 70% margin portion. So in just 3 months, they covered the cost of the equipment. And diecast. Diecast is a bar. It's a nightclub in Manchester that serves daiquiris. They have a bar with 7 rooms in one part of the nightclub, like this, and in the nightclub there are another bar with more 7 drink machines. in a total of 14 dream machines. This is a huge investment. It's a huge investment. Like, it's like buying 3 or 4 cars, to be honest. But after 1 year of the installation, we asked about the result of the frozen cocktails working with Dream. And he explained to us that in just 1 year, he sold 200,000 portions of daiquiri, okay? In just 1 year. So it means that in just 2 months, they covered the cost of the 14 drinks. This is a huge, it's amazing. This is crazy how fast they covered the cost of the equipment. But it's important. I want to explain this just to understand how our customers are going to cover the cost of the equipment, because I know that there is I think that the customer is a little bit more important. Well, finally, business types that you can do working with frozen cocktails. Obviously, the most obvious one is create the frozen cocktail ready to serve. It means you mix all of the ingredients in a bucket of the end cocktail, frozen margarita, daiquiri, and you put all of the stuff inside of the machine. Then the machine serves into the glass the ready to drink cocktail. This is the much obvious business type. What's more, we also have daiquiri station, hybrid daiquiri station. What does it mean? It means that you're going to install several machines. In those machines, you are going to work with the same spirit, in that case, rum, and you are going to prepare daiquiris with different flavor. It means strawberry flavor in one machine, in the other machine, lemon daiquiri, in the other machine, apple daiquiri. And then, because you are working with the same alcoholic base, you will be offering not just one flavor, but also combination of flavor in the same glass, because you are working with the same alcoholic base, with the rum. Then we have this idea for places that doesn't have so much space or doesn't want to invest so much in the machine, that is working with just one machine, but serving different flavors. So it means that you can also work with one equipment, with one machine, to prepare a base, neutral base with no flavor of daiquiri, okay? And then you can use syrups in a bottle format outside of the machine to add the flavor. So how is the operation in that case? You put into the glass, first of all, the syrup that you want, then you put from the machine the neutral base, the neutral daiquiri base, and then you give to the customer this mix of neutral base with syrup. Then the customer mix with the straw, the syrup with the neutral base alcoholic drink, and that's all. With just one machine, you can serve different kind of flavors. You can also serve this kind of stuff. You can work with different machines, one for preparing a neutral base, but the other one for working with frozen concepts without alcohol. So this is important for places where you have adult public that they want to drink frozen cocktail, but also chilled as a customer. So you need to offer the two kinds of drinks, without alcohol and with alcohol. So you can do like this. You can prepare a neutral base with one machine and mix with an alcoholic, with no alcoholic frozen drink in the same glass, as you see in the slide. Or if the child is the customer, you can use the frozen drink that doesn't have alcohol. So then another idea is to work in this kind of food trucks concept. Thanks to the machine and the vertical ventilation, you can install the machine in a very thin spaces that can allow you to install the machine in food trucks and move the concepts depending on music festivals and other kind of places where this kind of products it's important to offer. Then self-service frozen cocktail stations. Let's suppose a hotel or resort. It's plenty of people that they want to drink. Instead of having a bartender that it's suppose a salary, a cost, you can put the machine inside of a corner, something like that, and the own customers can serve directly from the machine the frozen cocktail to the glass. Okay, it's another way to save money using the machines. And this is another idea in case that you have rushes of people one part of the day and not so much people in the other part of the day. You can use the machine to prepare the frozen cocktail, but you can store the frozen cocktail in some cups and store those cups into the freezer. So let me say that the machine gives you the good texture and the freezer allows you to maintain, to keep the same texture into the cup. Then you can use it as a delivery or for different kind of concepts, like a dessert, something like that. Okay, and that's all. The last thing we have to do is create a serving and the decoration of the glass. Okay, in that case, the machine has the product ready to serve. Remember, it's just adding the frozen drink from the machine like this. From the lever, you can see we have here the texture, and as a garnish, we can use the same pineapple that we use for make the recipe, like this. And in terms of seconds, you will serve the frozen cocktail to the customer. This is one idea of ready-to-drink cocktail. The last one is using the neutral alcoholic base. That the first thing we have to do is adding this syrup. For example, this one is cherry syrup. First into the cup for the flavor, because obviously this one doesn't have flavor, and serving. So in that case, we are saving in a matter of seconds this cherry daiquiri to the customer. In case that other customer wants another mint daiquiri, we can use that syrup. Okay. So remember, the next time that you want to offer frozen cocktails in your restaurant, your bar, VR machines, VR equipment is going to save you time, save you operations, and saves you to so much operations and great results. Okay. Right now, you have some questions. You can do it into the chat, or if you want to do some information, you can contact through mail, and you can solve the doubts that you have. Thank you so much for your attention. We will see you some exhibitions or net courses. Okay. Have a nice day and good time and good day.